Diving into the world of Stick War fanfiction has been a very rocky road to me. There has been some phenomenal works of art, or just otherwise really good stuff, and something that are just straight up love letters to the community of Stick War. And then there is rushed stories that are put together haphazardly, to put it nice. Or their author just has departed for some other reasons. And because Stick War is not that well known for its story yet. And there just isn't that many writers to begin with to make Stick War content. So that is why it took me for a while to find a story that I would actually like, and that would actually spark some sort of emotion to me. And I finally found one. We're talking about The Fate of Inamorta Legacy by author N1ghtW1sh. Author's name is simplified here, okay? Now, before I actually start to review the actual thing, it is still much like the lore from Stick War Saga, but there are some changes, and for example, Atreus' origin is vastly different here, and some other things. But what about the lore of this story itself? I kind of think it's missed potential, but I kind of get it why it wasn't that focused anymore after the 4 or 3 first chapters, because how they should have been interpreted or integrated, don't really know. I'm gonna say this is gonna be spoilerish review, but still, go and read it, because I can guarantee you there's at least something you're gonna like about it. But so, let's begin. So, the first chapter is obviously the V's poem out of all things. It's V's poem put into this sort of chapter format. I was not expecting this, but I can see why the decision was made. Until we get to the second chapter of the story, we finally get some backstory. And so it's backstory for our different factions: Sword Draft, Spartans, Archidons, Magic, everything you can just guess. And of course we even get really nice, I quite like it. We get a really nice backstory for Lavish's own empire and own regime. It was just poorly made to pursue gold and riches. And that was extra points for that. But other than just that, it's not all that special, but it works as subtle foreshadowing for some of the future plot points we can get from this story. You're just gonna guess until we get forward, but other than that, it's some really basic stuff, basic lore. All you can pretty much guess, but not that it's bad by any 3 first chapters, because and so how they should have been interpreted is all about Atreus' origin, or integrated, and also the origins of chaos and order. I don't really know when you choose the format and of this story. This is where stuff gets a little too overly complicated and convoluted. Like, I think the backstory of least very interesting. My channel's name, of course. It's sort of an overly complicated mess that didn't need to be the way it is. Why? But then again, that makes I get it why the decision was made. Because not only he's pretty much the only character with an actual arc in this story. That it was invented just for the pure taste of gold. Because that's the only valuable currency. I think it's a little too overly aside from mana crystals, which weren't even found. He was a poor beggar from another city. Then he get under the wing of order. Then, because of war happened against the Spartan Empire, he got taken by hostage by the Spartans. And there he writes the ranks of the Spartans. And then, when order declared war once again towards the Spartan Empire, and so then the Speaking Empire obviously loses, but Atreus uses his former ties to the Order Empire to save himself. And look, he once again got the title of the lead. No, and that was what I was talking about. It's overly complicated and overly convoluted. I just don't remember the whole story of it all, and the problem is, it's not really all that important, and I think it could have been used more. But hey, Atreus gains the status of the hero of Inamorta because he slain the final boss of Stickwar Legacy. This will create sort of a continuity error soon. And then royal siblings and the trials of superiority happen. And the king of the order, its name just jumps back and forth. And that is one severe problem this story indeed has. But we're not gonna talk about the cons yet, we're talking about the positives. So, the sort of introduction arc is over the first 6 chapters. It's pretty good, but it gets really overly convoluted. And the names of the Order Empire's king just King Edgarus. Then suddenly it's Sarek, then suddenly Zilaros is sort of the head of the empire there. Then again Edgar, and then Sarek again. You see what I was going for when I say it's overly complicated. That's before that. No, there isn't much anything else to talk about. It's not maybe all that super special, but it serves the purpose it was set to do, and it's not bad by any means. Until we get into the Order versus Chaos dynamic once again. It's not like we haven't seen this story before, but there is stuff I really enjoyed. So let's get into the Order versus Chaos arc. Yep, our story begins with Atreus actually betraying Adikai because during the War of Rebellion. And then Chaos decides to reclaim their powers back in the back when Order is still fighting against its rebels. And this book really tries to portray Chaos as a real threat, and it gives the passive healing ability its own little lore. And all of the Chaos units get their own little backstories as well. And I like it how it's treated like these are actual threats to be taken seriously. You just have to read the book, because I'm not gonna spoil it that much. Of course, when we get into No Man's Land, we finally get the war between Order and Chaos. And this is where this story once again starts to present its cracks. Sudden time skips. And another issue is that this story quite doesn't know what it wants to be yet, but this is not yet the most egregious examples. So yes, Order wins the rebellions because of pure heart, because of their own set of principles and rules, and their own belief system that human life must be conserved. The true love and marriages shall be also conserved. There'll be no adultery. Like, this story really respects the source material, and the reason why I can firmly say that this is awesome fanfiction is because this gives me something that I am seeking from fanfiction: respect towards the source material, and you can clearly say that the author indeed cared about what he was writing. Like this whole chapter 9, I get no. But what else? This Order vs Rebels chapters, they are pure love letters towards the official games. And that is something I am looking from a fanfiction. Until we get into the actual Order versus Chaos dynamic, we jump into the arc of Endless Deads. A bit weird that we just jump there, but it was stated that the war between Order and Chaos is going to begin. And there we get Atreus and Kaiju romance. Because Atreus has his own lore in this story and he has no connection to the royal family, so it's perfectly okay, not incestuous in any way, alright, believe me. What can I say? It was foreshadowed a little bit when Spiros actually was inspired by Archidons. He believed that the archer's arrow has to be bigger and more efficient in combat. So then he invented the spear. And so the leader of the Archidons and the leader of the Spartans in present time, Atreus and Kaiju share a little romance. And because Atreus he has gone through some really bad stuff throughout already. His overly convoluted backstory, his betrayal of Adekai. And so he's really not in terms with himself. He hates all he has done. And he is indeed ashamed of it. And that is also another thing I love the writing of this story. It doesn't try to portray anyone as a bad person or just, he's an idiot, hate him. No, this one said every single character here is indeed likable. And that is something I'm gonna give points for. The Kaiju and Atreus romance is kind of pulled out of thin air, but then again, I get it why it was done. So Atreus can have this little scene where he can finally get in terms with his past and realize the old saying, the past cannot be undone, future is a mystery, but the present moment is a gift. And Kaiju doesn't have that much of development from this romance, other than just, it's a romance for Kaiju. But I get it why it was done, and the interactions they share, they're indeed pretty wholesome. But hey, having gone through that, Atreus even reads the book of the humble beginnings, and again showing some love and care for the official lore. And it's pretty much the V's poem re-explained, but in a book that is made from the Order's perspective and from the Order Empire's point of view, let's just say that. And I quite like it that they have some sort of translated version of the V's poem, despite they don't know it exists yet. Another continuity error on its way. And no, it's all right. Despite it creates a little continuity error we're going to talk about. But I like the idea that the Order has their own sort of literature devoted to the origin of Inamorta. After this little romance scenes, we get our first confrontation with Marrokai. And of course, in this story as well, Marrokai is more of a deformed version of Adekai. And of course, Marrokai hates Atreus for his betrayal, and well, he thinks that Atreus has not grown up. Then he wants Atreus to prove himself that he indeed has changed. If Atreus' life is to be spared from him, from Marrokai, I mean. And it's pretty much the fight from the Endless Deads, but with its own little twist and the character purposes, and the interactions we get and the truth bomb where Atreus tells to his siblings that Atreus has betrayed him, and because of Atreus, Atreus has been killed. But this story actually cares a little bit more about its characters. So it doesn't just pretend like, yeah, all of them just suddenly start to hate Atreus, because that was years ago when Atreus actually betrayed Atreus, and it is evidently clear. The story even states that Atreus is having very conflicted feelings and opinions about it, and he's not completely okay with this. Also because it has been years since Atreus has done that. So he has already proved to the Order Empire that he indeed is a worthy man, and he is to be trusted. And despite the obvious shock value of such reveal that he's a traitor, all of the Order soldiers and the royal siblings kind of tease him about it and just, no way, I couldn't have believed it's you. But after the confrontation with Marocai being, I don't remember, won or lost, maybe it was won, and then Marocai disappeared with his deaths, and they keep moving forward. They just realized that, now Atreus, you've already done so much more than just that. Than just one betrayal. You have caused so much good here too. So we don't hate you for it, for your betrayal once. The very next story beat we get is after the two fights I remember, with Marocai and his dead armies, until Shade appears to the story. And in this timeline, Shade has lost faith in the Order Empire, and she decides that she doesn't want to do anything with the Order Empire itself. And she just wants to distance herself from it. And then the one confrontation with Silaros proves all of this, that Shade thinks that the Order Empire is just using order for tyranny and oppression, which is obviously not true, given to the morals of the Order Empire the story has explained during the Rebellion chapters. So it's kind of weird that the story suddenly tries to portray the Order as evil, but it's Shade alone who tries to portray them. But it kind of falls flat that the Order Empire is actually more morally good. When Shade drops a bomb that I'm not gonna work with oppressors, and Silaros just during their confrontation, Silaros just doesn't claim anything against it. Like, okay, since I've already realized so much about this story that it's the same problem again and again, but it gets really egregious after this one confrontation. Because after the Shade confrontation and some other battles with Marocai, where it's pretty much a 50-50 situation, we don't know the outcome, we just speedrun to the gates of Medusa, to the final battle of Stick War 2, and then we won! Such a big time skip once again. For what? Just to end this Order versus Chaos plotline and move on to the dumb section of the story. And I really don't have anything else to say that, yes, we got new heroes from this fight against Medusa, and Shade finally joins with the Order Empire after the battle against Medusa has been won. She has regained their trust for the Empire. And then, yeah, it's pretty much Stick War 3, except we don't get the elemental map. The elementals don't even appear in this story, if I remember correctly. Other than that, I think we can say for a second that we have gone through 11 chapters. 6 were lore chapters, and the rest was Order versus Chaos chapters. But we just speedrun and rush through the whole war in like, what? You can read the whole thing in one evening pretty much. So that was kind of sad. But what is in these 11 first chapters? Very rich storytelling, very rich language, which I can respect, and I love it for it. I really think the language used here is very rich and vivid, and the descriptions really sell to me. The writing itself, how the story is written, I think is excellent. But what about the story itself? It has its shaky parts, and it's not built up the most in the most subtle way. But there is so many subtle elements to it. And let's get the real thing what I love about this. Respect towards the source material and the character interactions, because I love the way most of the characters are written. They have their own sort of personalities. Kaiju kind of doesn't have one. Cypher is the usual brash and headstrong guy, and then Atreus is sort of the main character and the hero and the leader, who really isn't in terms with himself. And then Zillaros is just there, but the character interactions we get, I love them. And speaking of Marokai himself, I kind of like the direction they were going, because I don't think Marokai really is a sympathetic villain. I'm gonna explain more in another of my videos I'm gonna make. But I really don't think that Marokai is a sympathetic villain. He was in the beginning of this story, and even in this book, yes, he might be sympathetic, but I don't really get it, especially after this point, because he's pretty much the quintessential villain who's stuck in the past and who doesn't know how to apologize and forgive people, and he's just fulfilled by hate, and that's it. He mongers pain for no gain. That is such a vivid description of him. He does evil stuff for no gain and pretty much for nothing anymore. And that is what I quite like about him, because he is something we should not be. He might have been sympathetic, but that does not excuse him. That does not justify the thing that he's turned into a warlord, and so he ashames the memory of other people by reawakening them as dead. He causes still mass destruction and keeps going with the war, even though he clearly doesn't have to. And in this story, he's just completely stuck in the past, and because he's stuck in it, he thinks everyone else will also be stuck there. And as a villain, really good. It is something that I can really get that. Yeah, he is mad, but he's still the bad guy. But that rant being over, what about the next chapters of the story after the chaos dynamic is over, which was shaky at parts and very rushed, but when it's good, it really is good. Oh no. It's the outcast tribes from Stick War Legacy in book format. And the idea is really good. You remember the bonus levels from Stick War Legacy? Yes, they are indeed very, very solid levels in their own story beats. And I think they are really good in regards of writing and in regards of gameplay and the concept alone. But this story, I suggest you would read only the first Tribe Rebellion chapter from this book, because if you have read one of them, you read pretty much all of them. Because they are so freaking rushed, and there isn't really anything I can praise about them. And it doesn't have any good character interactions. It is just rushed plot beats with pretty much copy and pasted words with some names being changed. So I don't have much to praise about it, and it is just pretty much copy and pasted stuff all over the place. And this chapter indeed raises the biggest problem this book has. The story has zero clue what it wants to be. It has very little to no clue what it wants to be, where it wants to go, what it wants to do. Like, you know those stuff that when I point out something that is being played weird, and then I say we're going to talk about it later. It's exactly that. The story doesn't know what it wants to be. And this is such a perfect representation of that. Like, is the Order Empire evil, morally grey, morally good, morally evil? Is Marokai actually good? Is Atreus an asshole? No, he's really good. But help me, please. But this is such an egregious example of this story not knowing what it wants to be, because at first it wants to be Stick War 3's lore accurate. Then suddenly it wants to be Stick War Legacy lore accurate and about the bonus levels, but then suddenly it shifts the narrative to being Stick War 3 retelling, but then suddenly it's Stick War Legacy again, and then again Stick War 3 again. And this makes this whole thing very disjointed, very rushed, and just otherwise very repetitive and frustrating experience. But it's really only just 4 to 6 chapters if I remember correctly. And well, there isn't that much to talk about. I already said everything I wanted. Let's get forward to a tournament arc. What the fuck? This book pulls out of nowhere a tournament arc orchestrated by Marokai, so that Atreus can face his corrupted brothers in arms. He faces Shade, Zyphos, his love life, Kaichu, and then after the battles are won, Atreus wins them. After that, Atreus captures or makes an alliance with Marokai. The next chapter tells that Atreus made an alliance with Marokai after that, because Marokai thought, you can be indeed a worthy soldier. But then again, I don't even remember what's that. Atreus proving himself that he indeed has changed arc even concluded yet. From the editing table, hello there. Yes, the arc pretty much has concluded, because during the final battle against Queen Medusa, I didn't mention it, but Medusa offers Atreus to join her for power and wealth and glory, for all the reasons Atreus betrayed Adekai back in the days. But because Atreus indeed has changed, so he declines this offer. And this is pretty much the end for Medusa. She has no way to lure him back to her side, and so she loses the war. And yes, Atreus pretty much proves himself that he indeed has changed. I should have remembered that when I was making this review, but that was all about it. See you again. And again, this story just doesn't know what it wants to do. This tournament arc is pulled completely out of thin air without any build-up. It just this little Colosseum there. Atreus goes there and suddenly he meets all of his friends. Yes, interesting indeed. And that's it. That's the build-up. It feels really weird that I said that I love this story. This is flawed but lovable. And suddenly I'm just tearing this whole thing to shreds. Wait till I gather my thoughts once again. I really need that. See you later. So this very poorly built-up tournament arc, is it on itself all good? Partially. Well, 1 out of 3. One out of 3 parts is, I would believe, at least okay. The Shade and the Cyphos versus Atreus. It's pretty much nothing. There isn't much special here, other than just who is this announcer of these battles? And Atreus wins them, but the dialogue is fine. The character interactions once again are great, I think. It's just all of the other things that just don't hold up until we get into Atreus versus Kaiju, and that is where I was actually it actually got pretty intense. And it is clear that Atreus indeed loves Kaiju, because before Atreus gets on the arena, Kaiju has won battle before Atreus, and then they two fight. Atreus ends up winning, but what a cost. He has to hurt his beloved. Of course, until Kaiju is free from the curse, apparently, like all the other royal siblings. And then, the final battle of the arena, it's Marokai himself. And this doesn't really hold up either. Before Atreus is about to hit Marokai to shreds, Marokai summons a malice Atreus of his own kind, which knows and copies every single move of Atreus. He just happens to know. And there, Atreus realizes that he cannot win this until Kaiju arrives. Atreus even says that, no, I can't win this alone. But hey, I got something you didn't expect. And that is when Kaiju appears. The malice Atreus gets shot down and Marokai loses. And out of pure plot convenience, Marokai just decides that, yeah, I'm not gonna be a bad guy anymore. I'm gonna be friends with this the Order Empire again, and I'm back. Attica is back, and all that. I'm good. This is once again, writing on its own is good, but the story itself, it is just in parts so shaky. But hey, we get into my own personal favorite chapter of this whole story. Attica returns. I was really interested when I was originally just reading all the chapters in the name of this story, and I thought, man, this looks pretty cool. This is actually pretty interesting. My curiosity has peaked to its absolute limits, and it was not built up the best with the lead up to it. It was this very lackluster tournament arc until we finally get into Attica Returns chapter. And I don't care what I have said before. This scene slaps always. Why it works then? Remember when I still said about that the way I love how the characters are written in this story. No one is specifically made to look bad or evil or wrong in any way. And that is when we get to King Zarek, who's probably mentioned the first time during this whole story. The name of the Order Empire's king is so inconsistent. It's another one of those problems that this story just doesn't know what it wants to be. But doesn't matter. King Zarek is now the king, and Marrokai is still. Well, he's turned back to Adikai. Let's just say that. But he still has all his skeletal bones and nothing else. It is until Zilaros is called to reform Adikai back to his own body. With spell I really don't believe Order Empire would use. But there is more to complain about than just that. And I get it why it is the way why this was made. And this chapter, everything else, I love it for it. It is just kind of why Zilaros would have this kind of spell. But that doesn't matter. Or maybe it's just me misinterpreting the whole thing, because it acts more like a healing spell, not a rune of reanimation type spell. But let's get back. So, and now Zilaros being in the same room with Adikai. Adikai finally gets his flesh and skin back. All of the other royal siblings are called back. Of course, they're not gonna believe their sights. But through time it is explained that it is indeed Adikai, their brother. And now the man himself, King Zarek, arrives. And this was such a bold move, because I don't get why the community hates King Zarek. I just don't get it. I never saw that big of a problem with him, but okay, he's hated. But then, this book, I love the way it brought down Zarek, and the whole conversation between him and Marrokai in the Chaos statue. The reason why King Zarek mentions Atreus, I'm speaking of him. He was like me, only better in every way. Well, in this timeline, Atreus and Adikai were really close friends. And so they would obviously have a very strong bond. Until King Zarek then mentions that in a way that he loves Atreus more, who is not even part of the family in this book. And this obviously struck Marrokai down. But Adikai is here now, it's no longer Marrokai. So he actually listens this time. And so the reason why Zarek did the whole thing was because Atreus and Adikai were almost like twins. They were so good friends with each other. And so Atreus reminded Zarek of Adikai, and Adikai reminded King Zarek of his own self. And that was something I was not expecting. But then again, it's the love of the author he put to make this book. And it is clearly evident that he indeed loves this franchise. But hey, let's move forward to the final battle arc of this story, and Adikai Returns chapter was, I think it is wholesome and beautiful. But the final battle arc, we are going for a ride. So please tell me, what kind of loose ends there is to tie up anymore? The tournament is over, Adikai is back, Queen Medusa is defeated, no signs of rebellion anymore. And just the story suddenly decides that, oh yeah, Petra is in here too. And she has pulled out this massive... oh no. She has pulled out this massive United Savage Tribes of Inamorta themed rebel group that the Order Empire suddenly does not stand a chance against because of their numbers. Like... this could have been so much more impactful if for example, the tournament Marolkai orchestrates would have been sort of a testament where they would find and gather soldiers for their own army. But then Adikai returns into a change of heart because how Atreus treats his opponents. But no, it's not that. Do we even get a proper origin for the United Savage Tribe Army? No. It is just Petra, the daughter of Queen Medusa, wants revenge. And that's it. Not that good of a beginning. But where do we keep going? Because as much as it gets wrong, it nails something I wish a story should, to my opinion, have. And those two things are atmosphere and a sense of the ending. That is something I am dying to see from entertainment. Because those are the biggest things I enjoy about them. Like, even something like the not so good Clockwork Your Time's Up story. I still love it for its atmosphere it has. So the urban legend vibes and all. I just can't help it. I still enjoy it, despite its quality. And then we get into this story and this climax. It has both of them in fact. The atmosphere, it's your basic stick war atmosphere, fighting for Inamorta against this demonic powerful rule of chaos, alongside with the Order army, or the other way around, and you're in this magical realm of mysteries. That's the atmosphere you get. The vibes you get from it, the opinions you form of it, the feeling you get from it, just the mood you get from it. Those are the atmosphere. And then we get to the sense of climax. Despite this being just another fight pulled out of thin air, I still can say that I enjoy it, and it has the sense of climax because how these two final chapters play out. Crystallized at first. It's our heroes being completely pulled down by Petra's forces. They stand no chance, they are tired, and they are desperately seeking for an answer, how they should do it. And then when one of their best soldiers gets captured, and they even attempt to steal this sort of crystal where Petra's powers come from, or negotiate and get Petra to just end this war so they can be free. It all fails, but the story itself, how we can get into Petra's hideout and to get the crystal itself, we are introduced one Shadowwrath character with Shade, who makes once again appearance in this story, and this Shade boyfriend. Forget what I said there. But still, just the idea that this crystal must be taken so Inamorta can be saved. We are at the end of order. The brink of chaos is about to be unleashed. The fate of Inamorta hangs in balance. We need determination, we need power, we need everything at our disposal to do it. Like that. I love it. I love the vibes I get from it. And just the idea that we get new characters along the way, and with especially with their own mystique, own cryptic pasts. I can't help it. It's awesome, in my opinion. And that is something I am looking for from a story. Calm down. Alright. But when this plan to steal the crystal does not work, until we finally defeat Petra, when with the clear power of determination and the faith in order for it. Okay, there's one thing to talk about, the royal siblings and their deaths. Yeah, they fucking die in the finale. And that is something I was not indeed expecting. But I think it is kind of disappointing because they're just... Oh yeah, remember the trials of superiority from this story. Aside from Kaiju and Cyphos, they haven't done any sort of appearances throughout. And that's disappointing. That's just, oh no, the Order Empire lost one of their most important members in ranks. And of course I'm gonna care if a human being gets killed in a story, despite it being just some faceless side character. Of course I'm gonna care about it. It's not like that. But it just could have been more impactful if we had at least some great interactions. This author has been written throughout with this. Thera, for example, her death would have been so much more impactful if we could have get a proper view how this author would have seen her, and her being constantly strapped and hurt while she can't anymore heal herself because her abilities are outdone and outnumbered, and so she dies out of blood loss and out of the wounds she's gotten. Like, come on. Of course, the death of Adikai and the death of Kaiju, they are something that really struck. Atreus finally meeting with someone who he can find, who helps him to get in terms with his past. It helps him to get in terms with what he has done, come in terms with himself, and so realize what's truly important in life. And even the person he loved, the person he was proud. This is just... And so Atreus being forced to sit in next to Kaiju as she dies. That hit hard. That actually landed on me. And then also Adikai, if I remember correctly, dies. But that is done so Atreus can put an end to Petra's reign of terror. And so that was the fate of Inamorta legacy. And of course there's these sort of end credits where it explains that the Order Empire's resolve, their determination, their faith in their own country, their faith in their own laws, their beliefs, vision, and the chivalrous hearts of knights and soldiers have finally saved the day from this Petra's crystal. And that was fate of Inamorta legacy. In conclusion, very, very good character interactions. Shaky yet understandable plot. Overly convoluted, but at the same time interesting lore. And some other stuff, but by this summary alone, I'm sure every one of us is going to have very mixed opinions about this. I'm going to rank this by an objective standpoint. It's my own, not exactly a grade I'm going to give. It's more like an it's more like an estimate that I would believe this story could get. And then I'm gonna give my own opinion on it. So, objective estimation, I'm on balance if it should be 5 out of 10 or 4 out of 10, 4.5 out of 10, because there's just so much wrong, and it is just so flawed in places. But my own opinion, 9.5 out of 10, because I can't help it. This gives everything I'm looking for from fanfiction. Love for the franchise, own unique lore, own unique character arcs, and also with its own vision, but also it still tries and wants to stay loyal to the source material and respects the original work from Crazy J. That is what I'm looking for. And then again, the vibes, the atmosphere, and the sense of climax during the end, it's all from me. I love it. but it's not the most well-made story, and there is a bunch of problems. But still, I love it, and I recommend you to check it out, because I'm sure there's at least something you're gonna find enjoyable, and I am sure of it. But that's all now. I'm probably gonna make more of these reviews if this does well, but doesn't matter anymore. Hey, hey.